It's Don here from the board. Thank you for coming along and checking out another one of our videos. So today we're going to be having a look and a quick comparison of the new Synth 2.0. Now, last year, I think, roughly thereabouts or so, I actually did a live stream where I did some cap casting, some artisan cap casting using my synth, which I purchased, and since then there's been a revision of the synth, which I also managed to get in the mail. Now, my previous synth, which I will show you of course, was I believe the 1.2 version, and I'll sort of go over that and try and explain the features that as far as I'm aware of, but I'm not 100% sure because I didn't really find a lot of documentation that could exactly confirm which particular iteration that I had of the original synth. So let's just get straight into it and check out what we've got in terms of the two versions and what similarities, differences, and so on and so forth. Now, I do iterate, of course, that I purchased both of these, so they're not anything that's been sent to me for review by TechKeys or Hungerwork Studios, and any of my opinions are naturally just my own opinions. So, here we go. Now, from a top-down, very quick level overview, there is my original synth. I think it's a 1.2 because it doesn't appear to have a colored anodize on it. It is not a version of the synth that doesn't have the Maker's Mark hole, because I think there was actually the original version didn't have the Maker's Mark in it, and then they added that. I'm not 100% sure. And I was fortunate enough that the insert and crucifix that I got with mine was not one of the ones that required retooling and was misaligned. So I think just to make it a little bit easier to see, I'm going to use my little impromptu platform, and then we can have a little bit of a closer look. Bear with me, of course, while I shift everything over. And I've also got a bit of text here on some paper that will help the camera align itself. And of course, if you have any concerns, questions about your photo card, you can always give that number a call, but I don't know what results you're going to get when you're in a completely different country. Now, so there is my synth that I used last time when I did the live stream, and what I've used to create rag caps, the Movember caps, and everything else. You can see it's had a bit of use on it. It's got, you know, some marks here and there, and it's still got Vaseline on it because that's the way that I use to apply mod release as opposed to spray mod release. I don't really have the space and any way safely that I can sort of just spray a whole bunch of mod release because I work in an apartment kind of scenario. But for me, the resins that I work with, the techniques that I utilize, the Vaseline, as long as you apply it correctly, works fine. You can't just liberally dash it all over the place because it's going to end up being too thick, and then you're not going to get good stem fitment because it's going to be loose, and so on and so forth. You do have to make sure that you wipe it very, very well and clean, but it just leaves a very light film that is going to be your release agent. Now, matching that is my, what I'm going to just call 1.2 version, crucifix, and there we go. Now, I'm going to turn off my front-facing camera only because the way that my screen setup is, I can't actually see if I'm showing what's on the platform very well because it's all in front of my actual screen if I'm trying to be facing the camera. So let's get rid of that not so distractingly. All right. And let's just adjust the microphone so you're not hearing some muffled sounds. So this is the 1.2 crucifix. And besides the fact that I've applied some masking tape to the sides that you can kind of see there, and the fact that it still has Vaseline on it as well, it has a couple of things that are actually unique to this version because the 2.0 doesn't have it. I'm just going to get something I can point with, maybe, if I'm lucky. All right, so just going to put the crucifix back down again, the insert stem, and what I'm trying to show here is that there are these little lip bits that are at the base of the crucifix. Let's see if I can rotate one so you can kind of see it a little bit in the light. They sit right on the edge there, and the actual stem goes down, it sticks out, and then drops again. What is also interesting is the fact that there are sort of slotted grooves that I'm not sure if it'll show up very well here, but as the camera is trying to flick in and out of focus, is that at the base here of the actual crucifix is also some slots. So if I turn it sideways, well, let's see if, no, it's not really visible sideways. Yeah, you can see the side profile there, how it's got a bit of a sort of a U shape that goes in and out of the actual crucifix. Maybe if I bumble my way around this, we can, nope, not the right orientation. Okay, so see if I can get the focus happening. Yeah, so where these U divots are that you can see here, there's actually a channel that goes all the way in against the crucifix. And that's kind of designed, I believe, to help with getting the resin and air out so that you get a good fit. So other features on the main base, of course, is that you've just got your central hole where the stem goes through. You've got your sprue and vents. You've got the different aligned top to bottoms. So these are rectangular and these are square, of course. And you've got the platform. When we flip it over, it's just a rectangular rounded hole that the crucifix slots into. And the reason why I've got the masking tape is so it becomes nice and snug and there's no sort of left and right wiggle. Now, of course, my masking tape has just come off as I've put it in, as you can see there. So there is going to be a bit of play and wiggle. Now, I actually learnt that trick of putting the tape around it to shore it up from Binge himself. He uses clear tape of some kind, but the clear tape that I had available doesn't really fit. So masking tape actually works a bit better for me. Now, let's just put this aside for the moment so we can have it there as reference. There we go. Comes into focus again. And now we're going to have a look at the 2.0. So straight away you can notice it's a very dark color because it's an actual anodized coating. And on top of that, it's aluminium. So the 1.2 that I've had was actually steel, and the 2.0 is aluminium. Straight away, feature-wise, you can see that there's this curve here with a slot up the top. From what I can tell, it's designed to assist with multi-shot molding. I believe that is to get alignment of parts so that when you have multiple molds, when you're doing different shots, you can actually have it so that part of the resin is going to sit in there and you can clip it in, I think, to the actual base of the synth and then inject through either the vent holes or through the center stem before you drop the actual stem in. So that's pretty nifty, but of course it does limit you in a way that you have to ensure that you are casting enough at whatever layer of your colored shot that it's going to get some into that. I think it also acts as a grip for whatever sculpting medium that you're actually using so that it holds it and it doesn't tend to slide or break off. But what you do lose, of course, is that maker's mark that you see that we have on the 1.2. So that's the first real notable difference in terms of its actual design, because you still have your rectangular and your square bases, but a subtle design is that when you turn it over to the side, it actually has rounded edges rather than very square cut edges, and there's a shelf in it. So if you see the 1.2, it's straight down all the way to the base, and if you look at the 2.0, you'll see it actually comes down and there's a straight sort of section just before you get to the base. Not 100% sure why that was necessary, but as long as it doesn't impact, you know, if you're putting caps on top of it as opposed to sculpting straight on top of it. But I can't imagine that they would have designed it to inhibit the flexibility that the synth actually offers. Now you still have really great sized vents here. Now just by looking at them, I think they're the same size. I can't be 100% sure without measuring them in some kind of capacity, but just eyeballing it, they look like they're the same size, which is great. So if you do have Q-tips that fit, I don't have Q-tips that fit. The ones that I get from my local supermarket, Australian branded knockoffs or whatnot, they don't fit through the hole. So I have to get creative with what I put through them. And then, of course, if we flip it over to the back, it looks practically the same. It's just curvature, holes, nothing special, except now we've got straight edges, whereas there used to be a beveled edge on the 1.2. So the 2 doesn't have a beveled edge. Now, the stem from the 1.2 should have no problems fitting into it, and it doesn't at all. So the fact that none of those dimensions have changed is great, because you do get that sort of interchangeability. However, you'll notice that there is a lot, well, maybe it's not so visible, but there's a lot of wobble in that, even with the little bits of tape that are still in there. So it does seem like it might be a little bit looser, but of course the 2.0 has its own insert. Now it came with a little silicone kind of sleeve protector thingy-majiggy, bit of rubber. I don't know if it's actually silicone, but I'm just calling it that. I'll just take it off. And straight away, the contrast is actually quite notable, because it's a very simple design. Now, let's see if I can get that straight underneath the camera a little bit better. Okay. Compared to the 1.2, there's a couple of things. You can't see it very well here, but the height is much longer. Much longer. So it's about twice almost. No, not quite twice, but the barrel of it is almost, it's probably 40% longer, but the crucifix part of it is about the same. So that's the first thing. I mean, they both have the hole in it, so you can pop your tools through, screwdriver or whatever it is, the rod, a dowel, that you can pull the actual insert out of, because it should be a very nice snug fit. In terms of the width of that crucifix, it looks bigger, it looks thicker, which is why the 1.2, even though it fits, is not as snug compared to the 2.0. Now, if I get the actual bases of them and I flush them up, they're actually the same width. So it's quite interesting that they've gone for the same diameter metal by the looks of it, roughly, but they've actually made the bases wider, thicker. So they've milled less material away. And then the other feature that's very notable by comparison is that you no longer have these drop cuts that I was talking about earlier and describing quite badly. So it's straight down and flush with hard surface, which means you do need to apply a good solid amount of mold release, because you're not going to get the ventilation of the resin, well, not ventilation, but the channels that you used to have, where you could have mold release sort of sit there in a little bit thicker, I suppose, layer. And that may be one of the reasons why some of the people who've started casting with them have said that there's a little bit of an issue in regards to them getting a good release. So obviously I haven't used this yet, but I will be hopefully at some point soon, and I'll be able to sort of maybe make some comments about it. But it looks interesting. It does fit nicely, of course, so I'm just going to drop that in. So it fits, and I don't know if it's going to... There is still a little bit of play, but it's nowhere near as much play compared to the 1.2 in the 2 base. Now, of course, vice versa, if I take the stem from the 2 and I try and put it into the 1.0, it doesn't fit. I don't want to force it, and it sort of just sits on the lip there and it doesn't want to go in. So there is no backwards compatibility between the stem from the 2.0 and the 1.2. So that's just something that you want to be aware of, because if you are going to be doing casting with these simultaneously, you got to make sure that you're putting the right ones in. Okay. Now, supposedly it was designed to have better tolerances, and that way you'll get better products and you're not going to have crooked stems. However, just by wiggling this, I feel that there is still a possibility and chance that you could still get crooked stems. How easy is that to do? I'm not sure. Will I be able to fit a layer of tape in there? I don't know. I haven't quite got that far yet, but I thought I would just show and sort of have a play around with it before I did any casting with it. So that's pretty much it for the major features. Now, in terms of its actual weight, I will sort of just weigh that anyway. Why? Just because I can. There's really no need or reason for it, since we do know one is steel and one is aluminium, but we'll do it just for the heck of it anyway. So there's my scales. I'm gonna tear that. So there's the stem and the base from the 1.2. I'm just going to tilt that so you can kind of see it's about 67.6. Whoop, 67.6. That's going to come back down. Tear that again. And then we'll put the 2.0 and its stem into it. And I'm going to tilt that up, and you can see it's 26.5. So there's about a 40 gram difference between the two just by materials alone, even though the actual stem for the 2.0 is bigger. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Just a shortish, quickish video having a look at some of the differences between the 1.2 and the 2.0. Now, right now for the 2.0, there is no top ray or TMX insert. Whether that is actually to be planned, is it on the books, is it something that they're thinking about, I'm not 100% sure. Of course, the best way to stay on top of this would be to, stay in touch with the things that Hungerworks Studio posts, especially on GeekHack, because that typically is where a lot of this kind of information is released, as well as keeping your eye out on TechKeys when new versions are sort of put there for tantalizing people's wallets, and then of course also available for sale. Now, thankfully this time when I got my 2.0, it actually came relatively quick, probably about 2 weeks, whereas last time when I got my 1.0, it actually took almost a month to get here. That's neither here nor there for what TechKeys did. It's really more about postal carry, but I'm certainly glad that I got it sooner than later so I could do a quick review. And maybe, because I actually haven't checked TechKeys website if it's still available or if they've sold out, if you've been sitting on the fence and you're not entirely sure about getting a synth because you want to try casting, or if you want to upgrade from your 1.2 or 1 or any of the other earlier versions, then this might help you make a decision on what you're getting out of upgrading to the 2.0. So there you go. Thanks a lot for checking out the video, of course, and we are actually at 589 subscribers, so we're only 11 subscribers away from our 600 subscriber giveaway. So make sure you do hit subscribe, hit like and share, of course, if you want other people to be able to check out this video and learn a bit more about the Synth 2.0. And yeah, I guess we'll call it a day there. So thank you very much again, and as always, until next time, happy clacking.